Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Now in this video we're going to be looking at edit product view, whereby we're going to edit our products because now we have been able to add them and we're also able to delete a product here. So from the last tutorial or the last video we discussed about the product list, whereby now we were able to add our products through our API here, and now we are now able to edit to have the product list, whereby we are now able to list all these products from our API, that is from our backend, and then now we are able to see them in this way. Now today we are going to look at the edit product, whereby now we are able to edit a particular product. For example, we can change the price of this particular product name, and as well as the price and as well as the description, because those are the three fields that we have here. So we have the name, the description, and then the price. Right, so let's begin here. So here we have the edit product view, and this is the component. So we are just going to begin straight away. So let's just begin with the template here. And as I said from our analogy from the last video, a template is just like a toy makeover table. Now in this case, for edit product, the template is going to be a toy makeover table, whereby we want to design, not to design, but to be able to change some things in our car. So for example, we can change the car name, the car price, the description of the car, and so forth. So the template here is responsible for making that happen. So here down inside here, I'm going to have a div class, and then the div class here is going to be edit product for CSS, that, and then here. So inside there we're going to have the same things that we had from last time. So form at submit dot prevent, of course. So what we say there, basically we are preventing the submit is event is prevented, so that we can just call the submit form. So here I'm going to have submit form like this, and then I'm going to have a CSS class so that we can edit. So here I'm going to have edit product form like this. So that is what I have there. So the submit form here is just to be called once you get to click the button for editing. It will be called instead of the submit dot prevent. Now next we have is the input. So we're going to have input class, and then here we have input field for our CSS like that, and then we're going to have v model for our data binding. So the v model here we're going to have is product.name. Product.name, of course, we give it a placeholder there, and then here, of course, this is the product name for our ongoing series. So we already know what is the product name and all that. So down here I'm going to have if from view, whereby I'm going to check if there are any errors and then output them. So the first one, we're going to check if we have errors within the errors.name, and then you're going to have a CSS class here, which is going to be this way, and then here I'm going to have these two curly braces. So here we're going to have errors, is it correct? Errors.name, like that. So basically here what we have is we check the input field here when the person is typing. In case he doesn't type a name, that's when this is going to be thrown here. So this one is just checking if the errors.name, if of course the person has a keyed in a name. Now this is going to be evident when we go to the script part, so that we can now code the errors messages, so that in case the person doesn't type a name, then an error is going to be thrown. So I copy that one, I paste this one, and this one I'm going to change for product description. So I'm going to have product description. Then here we're going to have product description as well. So description like that. And then here we're going to change this to description, as you can see there, as well as here. Okay, so that is what we have. And then down here I'm going to have the last one, and the last one here is is for the price of the product. So we have the input field, the binding for the new model is going to be that one. So product.price and then product price, like that. Then here we're going to have errors.price, as well as here we're going to have dot price, like that. So those are the three items that we are going to validate, of course. And if there's any error, the error is going to be thrown. Now next we go to the last part of this template, which is the submit button. So you're going to have a button here. So button type, sorry, button type is equals to, so here you're going to have submit, then you're going to have class like that, and then submit button. Okay, so we have that, and then here I'm going to give the button name update product, like that. So what is happening here is that when the person clicks update product button, this submit form is going to be called, and of course now we are going to have the script here so that we can establish what will happen. Of course, when you click update product, the API here is going to be called, and remember here, as I said, the update is put. So for example, if I wanted to update product 1, I would of course have put or patch, two of them, then the product ID, and then I send, but before I send I need to indicate here. So for example, here the first part here we add is the name. So I would call here the name. Of course, here type in the name like this. It's already keyed in. It's okay. So name, and then here the name of the product, of course. And then here, of course, we'll have something like description, and then here I would give the description of the product, and then lastly here I would have the price, and then the price here would be the price of that product. Of course, the product will not be Brian, but the product name, because we are dealing with an e-commerce. So if you wanted to change shoes, for example, we could type, for example, let's say mobile phone, of course, mobile phone, maybe, and then here maybe you would say, for example, iPhone, and so forth. Actually, I've done this in a tutorial or in a video, which is I'll link it in the description below. It's about Laravel API development, so you may want to check that before if you are not conversant with this. Okay, so let's continue. So we are in the script part here, and here what I'll need to do, I'll need to import some several things. So I would have import statement here, and then I'm going to have some new items. So if you have been following this tutorial, there are some things that I did not that is I'm going to introduce here that we have not dealt with, but that's okay. So here I call the onMounted. So here I'm saying import this reference, which is onMounted. So here what I need to do is I need to import a functionality from the Vue3 composition API so that I can use the onMounted. So that onMounted basically means when you add this component to the web page the first time, we're able to see what is there. For example, when we mount this component, the edit view product, we are going to see that this is the current data that is within your API before we make any changes. So that is what we mean by onMounted. So we are going to see it once we continue, because we're going to use it somewhere. Then here I'm going to have this. I'm going to have use route, this one here. So use route, and then also going to have use router, because you're going to use, so the use router from view router. So we're importing the routing functionality so that we can now use the route, because once we get to update a product, we need now to be, for example, taken back to the page. Of course, when we click edit the product, we're going to be taken to the edit option, and then you're able to edit a particular product. So that navigation is done by these two. So we need to use the router. Then here we're going to have import Axios. Of course, you know what Axios is all about. So we're importing Axios, and this will bring problem if we don't indicate at and then the slash, like that. So that should be that way. So those are the three items we need to import so that we can begin using them. Now the next part here is export default, whereby we are going to export. We are going to to call what we call the setup. So the setup here. Now the setup is now I want you to note something. If you are following this tutorial, you'll note that in this other component, for example, product list, you can see here I've been using data, because data here basically is used to return the data that of course is identified by these particular methods. For example, when we call the async product to delete a product, of course we use the axios to make the request to our API so that you can delete the product, and then of course once the product is deleted, it is filtered out with a given ID. So the data here basically is just to fill up whatever has been done by these particular methods here. So for example, when we call the created, which is of course a mount, a life cycle within view, of course we're able to get the list of products. So the list of products are filled here within this particular array. Now we are using data, whereby data goes with the methods, then the methods are defined here. But within this edit product here, I decided to use setup. So setup is a new it's a new concept within view 3, whereby it has replaced the data and methods which are found in view 2. Actually, now we need to be using the setup so that we can. So setup gives you more options for adding methods, whereby you don't need to define data in one place here, and then you have now methods in this place. So that's the differences. But we shall look at this one in other tutorials and learn more about it. So here I'm going to have const product is equals to ref, because ref I've imported it, so I need to use it. So here I'm going to have ID, then here I'm going to have something called a null, and then here I have this. So let me have this single quotes, and then here I'm going to have description, and then I'm going to have this with the two of them, and then last one is going to be price, like this. Then here I'm going to have that. So now what is happening here is that the const product ref, what it is doing here, the ID is setting it to null, the name, of course, you're setting it to empty, the description empty, and as well as the price empty. So basically, within our analogy of the toy, here it's like, for example, we are setting up our boxes which are found within the toy car to be empty, so that they can be filled up with any details that we need. For example, when you get to update this product name, the product description, and then the price, they are going to be filled up here. So this concept is still the same as this one here, the data, whereby we of course we define the products array so that you can come and fill them up with the given details of our product. The same case here, only that now we are using the setup within view 3. So const product, we're going to have it that way, and then here to have errors, const errors, because of course the first one is for the name, so the second one now is for the errors here. So the errors that you're going to get if the person doesn't type a given okay, so let me copy this one. So if the person doesn't type the given data, then you're going to have that. So I'm going to close it that way, then I close it in this manner. So those are the two. So the const errors, we define them to be empty. And let's now go to the routing part. So now the routing part here we're going to do is we're going to get the const route here. We're going to define the const route, and then you're going to define use route like that. And then here, and then down here, we're going to have product dot value, then dot ID. So here it is equals to route dot params, and then dot ID. So what we mean here, what am I doing here? So what I'm doing here is like within our analogy of our toy car, basically we want to know, for example, when we begin, in other words, we want to know which toy car we are going to work with, and then where to place it after we have done the makeover. Remember, the template here is doing what we call the makeover. Probably I need to indicate somebody here. So when I mean makeover, here what basically I mean is that we want to do some makeover within, because edit is all dealing with the changing the updating our product. So the makeover table within our toy car, within toy car here. So what we are doing here is we just make give different changes within our toy car, and then here, once we do that, once we are done with the makeover of our toy car, that is changing the product name, product description, and then the price, then we want to navigate to a different place. And of course, this would be, of course, going back to the product list, which is the main page. Okay, so route.params, here we are just extracting the product ID. So we identify the current route instance so that we can now take out the product ID, and then once we take out the product ID, we can now navigate to the edit option, and then of course we return back. I believe that is understood well. So I'm going to have another one here, which is const router, and then here we're going now to use the router. So here I'm going to have this, and then here I'm going to have const router. So here we get the router instance, and then down there we're going to have now several things. Now here I'm going to define a method here, which is going to validate our input. So I'm going to have it that way, which is equals to this, and then now we can have the method. We can now add what we need to add. So here we're going to have error messages, which I mentioned at the start, which is equals to this two. So I'm going to have this, and then here I'm going to check some few things. So here I'm going to check if product dot value like this, and then dot name. So here I'm going to have the error messages dot name, and then it's equal to name is required. I believe this one makes sense for you in terms of understanding. So this operator here basically means if we don't get the value of the name from our API, that is, you don't give the name of the product, then what is going to happen here is that, of course, you're going to flash this message using this if statement within our view. I believe that one is quite understandable. So the next one here, I'm just going to copy this because it's still the same thing. So here we are going to change this one to description like this, description, and then errors dot description like that. And then here we're going to say description is required. So we need to require the description there. So let's go to the last one, which is the price. The price is going to change a little bit. You're going to have the product, check the value of the price, of course the error messages. So now here we're going to change some things. So before we go to this error message, here I'm going to have these two pipe signs, which means, of course, we compare two parts within our application, and then we're going to use this function here, which means is not a number. That is, this function is coming from JavaScript. So so it's not a number, and then here we say so let me just type here and then explain this to you. Okay, so what we mean here is that if we check the first part of the value, has he given the value of the product price. Now this value he has given, it should be a number. So here we're going to say this. So here first we change this to errors.price, messages.price, and then here we're going to say price is required and must be a number like that. So we check the two to determine that whatever he has given, he has keyed in something, of course, because you expect our values not to be empty, that is our input fields not to be empty. And then we check now, has he also given the whatever the input field he has given, is it a number? So that is basically what we do there. And then down lastly here we return the error messages to back so that we can now validate and of course be able to submit if everything goes well. Now once we are done there, here I need to add this one like this, and then just beneath here I just need to, now I need here to define the form submit function. So here I'm going to have another, actually this submit form which is already identified here is the one we have here. And as I said here, when the person will click this button to update the product, this the submit.prevent will not be called. So what will be called is the submit form, so that now we can now edit that particular product. So now once he clicks that submit form, what is, so we want several things to happen. So here I call a sync, then I explain uh, basically what we want to do. So when we call a sync here, what we want to do is that we want to send the updated details of our product details back to the server. So basically what we mean here is that once we get to validate our input fields and we identify that there is no error, that is in terms of the name, description, price, then here we click that button using this, it will call the submit form here, and then it's going to send those details, to those updated details, to our server. And this our server of course is this one here through our API here, and then it's going to update the given product. I believe that one is quite understood. So that is what we have. So here I need to have this like that, and then here I'm going to have const, and then I'm going to call the error messages here. Now the error messages, I'm calling it here so that we can validate, we can check this input. So basically we are checking this, so that's why I'm calling it here like this. And then down here I need to have this if, and then I need to define this JavaScript object whereby I check object.keys, and then here I'm checking the error messages. Then here I need to have this length which is greater than 0. I believe you understand what this means because I taught it in one of the components here, because here we now check, this one is just an object.keys, it is just running through these three items here and then be able to check if there are error messages. If they are not, because the length is greater than 1, if they are not there, then we need to have this. So we need to have errors dot value like this, which is equal to error messages, and then here we return this like this. So basically we check if there are any errors, and then if there are any errors, we are going to return them by defining errors.value, which is equals to error messages. So what are the error messages which are there? And if, of course, there are no errors, then the product is going to be updated. So lastly, we have to, so here I need to define a try, and this try is going to do something here. I'm going to call our Axios here, which is used for making HTTP requests. So here I'm going to have this backtick, and then I'm going to define products like this, then slash, and then here we have product, and then dot value, then dot id like this. So dot id here we have this. Actually we don't need this, one needs to be there like that. And then here I'm going to have product dot value. Now what we mean here, basically you already understand what we are doing here. So here we are just sending an Axios request, and when you see myself using put is the one here. So what I mean here, I'm just sending an API request so that I can now update our product details or the product data to the server. So that basically that is what we are doing here. Remember the first part here I said is that when the person clicks the submit button, this submit button is going to be called. Then it is going to check if there are any errors, of course, through this method here, which is we have defined to check if there are any error messages. Once it finds that length is greater than 0, that is, there are no errors, then now we are going to send this API. We are going to call this API so that we can now update our product data here. So upon successful update, we are going to return to the product list. So here I'm going to have router dot push like that, and then here we're going to push this to our product list, which is this one here, because it is the one that is displaying the products themselves. So once we are done with that, now of course we need to check if there are any errors, because errors of course could come. So here I'm going to catch any errors because we defined the try, so it is try and catch. So here I'm going to have error, that is, I'm going to pass error there, and then of course, as you know, we have been doing this so far. But if you are new, this is how we go about it. So here I'm going to have actually I just need to copy this this one here like this, and then paste it here. So an error occurred while updating the product. And then of course we pass the error so that if there's any error, we get to identify that error there. So that is that part. And then here we're going to have an if, and I'm going to tell you what this if is doing. So if dot response, and then here we're going to use this to error, then dot response dot status, and then here I'm going to give this to 2. Now you know for to do what it stands for, the status, that is the HTTP status code. So here we check if here what we are doing, we are just handling the server side validation errors. Basically we are console.error. Of course, this is just to print for us errors within our console upon identifying those errors. So when we say error.response and error response.status, we are just checking what are the errors, and then we console them using our console that we have defined above. Then here we're going to have errors.value, which equals to error.response.data, then errors like that. So here we just handle the server-side validation errors by returning the error data. That is, we are just calling the response of data errors so that we can console those errors. And then here I'm going to have this one here, and these two, they're going to be down there. I'm going to use them. So let me have them down. Now, the unmounted. So I talked about the unmounted from the first part when we were importing this one now here. So the unmounted, this one is now when we interact with this particular component for the first time, is when the unmounted, that basically that's what unmounted means, if you may not have understood it. So here I call a sync, and then here I'm going to have I'm going to have this this one doing here. So I'm going to have this, actually it's supposed to be there, we're going to close it at the end. So down here I'm going to have try and catch, and then I'm going to define const response, which is equals to wait, then axios, which is of course equals to get, and then the backtick there. So this backtick should be that way. Actually this is the same as this, because we are just, so here we are just doing what we call get, and the get is of course is being done for the first time. So I just need to have that one there. So here we have the backtick and then the product. Then this one should not be there, it should be products, and then actually it should be there. Then the product.value.id is going to be there, and then we don't need to have this one here, product value. Yeah, so that's what we have. And then here we need to close this one this way. This one should be 1. like this. So the product and then product.value.id. So that is now basically what we are doing here. Actually, this is quite understandable because the unmounted here is just getting this product for us for the first time. So basically, as I said, the unmounted or the mount, what it does within this frameworks, what it does, it is when the edit product component, or in other words, when the component is added to the web page for the first time, it is now when the mount is called. So when the mount is called, we are able to see what we have within our product. And in this case, when the mount will be called and added to that is when the component is added to the web page and the mount is called, what will happen is that we are going to have the details of this product being displayed at first time before we do any changes. So that is what we mean by on mount here. And in this case, you can see we are calling our await axios.get so that we can get the product ID. And then by getting the product ID, actually this is what we mean here. So what we mean here is we come here, we do the get, and then here, now instead of having this, so this is what we mean. So this is what we mean. So the API request is sent, and then here we get the product for the first time. So that now once we get the product for the first time, and we check it for the last time before we do any edit, that's when now these other methods are going now to be we have defined them, are now going to be defined. We have defined them. So the setup will now be called so that now it can begin doing all this that we have implemented here. So that is what we have there. Okay, so now the last part is okay. So once we do that, we call once we get, we need now to define this, because once we call the API, we need now to define this within our view so that the view can get the entire data. So the first part here we're going to have is a product. So we're going to have product.value dot name, which is equals to response dot data and then dot name, like that. And then here we're also going to have going to copy this. So here we're going to have product dot description, and then here we're going to have response dot data dot description, like that. And then we're also getting the product dot value dot price. So here we also get that, and then here we return the response dot data dot price, like that. Now we also need to do a catching of error in case we get any error, because we are within the try. So let me copy this part here. So here we're going to have that. So an error occurred while fetching the product, and then of course we submit the error if it is there. So there's something here we did not close. You can see this red line here tells you that you need to have this one, then we need to have this here, then we need to close that one, like that. And then down here, once we do that, we're going to return something here. So here we're going to return product submit form. So we're going to have this like this. So the submit form, and then you're going to return the errors. So basically what we are returning here, we are just returning we're going to have this, and then we need to have two of them. So these two are coming from I believe you have been following the brackets. So you have these two here, these two brackets here. So they need to close there. Okay, so if you have been following up, you get to understand that here we return the product, the submit form, and the error. So what we are doing here, we are just exposing the reactive references. That is the methods that are used within the template, and of course its product, submit form, the product, and the error. So that is what we are returning there. So once the mount happens, we get the details of our product, which is this, the name, description, the price, together with the ID. And then we are going to, of course, identify if there's any error when we are fetching the product. And then basically once that is done, because now we get to identify the product's details for the last time before we do any edit. So then now the setup is called. So here this one is going to receive we are setting them up empty so that we can receive the updated details of our product, name, description, and price. So that's once we get to do that, the const route, use route, and params, that is the route params.id, this one is returning. We are extracting the product ID, and then we are now able to edit the product and then navigate back to the list, to the product list, and so forth. And then here, of course, the const validate input, we are validating the product data so that we can ensure that all the input fields have been filled up. And then here the submit form, of course, this one is once the button is clicked here, what will happen here is that this one will be called to check if there are any error messages through this validate input, and then it will return the product data. Then here this one, this one now is going to update the product upon if there are not any errors, and then return us to the product list page, this one here, as you can see. Okay, and then the mount is, of course, is when we want to check, when we are checking the product details for the first time, for the last time. Why am I using the first? For the last time before we do any update. And that's all about the edit product. So in case there are any errors, we'll check and correct them. And then we also have, before we add the CSS, let's actually, before we do that, why am I going fast? We need to come to the product list, because you can see here we need to have an edit button somewhere here so that you can edit the given product. And from the last tutorial, the last video, we defined the action links here, and I only added the button, delete button function. So here what I need to do here, I need to come to the product list, and then here on the action links, here is where I need to add this. So I need to add the router here. This router is going to be router link. Then here I'm going to define a class which is equals to edit link. And then here, once we do that, I'm going to add something we call a vbind. A vbind directive. What is a vbind? A vbind directive is the one that is used to bind the two with the properties of our route data. So what are the properties of our route data here? So here we're going to have this. We're going to have this. Actually, there should be two, but we're going to add the other one. So here I'm going to have, for example, the route data is this edit product, and remember the edit product is the component like this. And then here I'm going to have params, and then here I'll have this, I'll have ID, and then here I have product.id, and then here we have this. So here I have edit button, and then it's going to be closed by the router link, as you can see there. This one not supposed to be there, and this one is supposed to be here. So we have two, and then we have the name, then the edit. So I believe this one should be that way. Now what we mean here when I talk about the two is a vbind. So not the two, but these two colon, they are vbind. So vbind basically means that we want to bind the edit product, which is coming from, let's go to navbar, not navbar, sorry, but the router. So here I need to add something here. So let me add it here. So let me add this route here. So we're going to have this. So this is what I need to copy this one. So what I need to do here, I need to add edit product, and then here I need to have this. Then I will explain in just a sec. So here I have edit product, then here I need to have edit product, This one is going to be set as private because, of course, you don't need to access his route if you're not logged in. So what I'm saying here is that this two here, this not this two, but this colon here is a vbind, which is binding our route data with our router link. So here this is what we are. So binding with our, that is the colon binding with our route data here. So basically what we say here is that we are binding the two with the route data, and the route data is this one, the name, the params. Of course, you can see from our router.js, we have the name, we have of course the path, which is, of course, you have defined it as the /edit product ID with this that is with this colon here, and then we pass the ID. Of course, we have the name of the component and then the component itself. So basically that's what we are doing. We are just binding it with this route data so that now we are able to call the product through its ID and so forth, and then now we are able to click that product ID, and then be taken to the product itself. So once I save this one, this is going to update. Let's have it update. So we have we have an error which says no match for the name edit product in params ID 1. Okay, so let's check this again. So this is the router link class. All right, guys. So I've just discovered we are not saved this. So this one, there was this kind of a thing. So we just needed to save this, and then of course once we save this, because from our product list, this is just the way we have added here. So you can see this is what we have. So here, when you can see the error has disappeared, but we can't see anything. So when I go to inspect, which is very important, you can see we have the error of edit product is not defined. So what I need to do here is that when I go to router.js, I need to define it here. It means that we have not imported it, in other words. So I need to come here and then import this. So I need to do this import from components. So here the component is going to be edit product, should be edit product.view. So now it can be identified. So let's see if we have any other error. Okay, so here we have the edit. So let's click edit. So all right, so this is now working. So let's see if we are able to change a product. For example, butter shoes, we can change the price to, let's say, $10 and click update. Okay, so that is shoes. Let's check update again. Yeah, so it is working. It has now been successfully changed, and you can see there are no console errors. So let me quickly add the CSS. So this is the style within our edit product. So down here, just come here and give the style in here. So this is just going to do some editing. Sorry, it's going to add some stylings to our error. Of course, the error messages, if they are there. Edit product input field. Remember, we defined all of them as our classes here. The input field, the class error, as well as the class edit product form. So we are going to style them. Here we're going to give them some stylings, as you can see there. Submit button, you're also going to give it. So you can give them your own stylings, as this is according to your preferences. So this is what we are going to get. So I can change this to 12 and update this product, and then I'm taken to the product list, and as well I can check this. Now I don't need to do this. So in the next video, which is the last one, I'm going to delve into the product details. So actually it is this one here. So whereby you can click and see the product detail of it. So guys, what you need to know here is this is just a foundation for you to get started with designing your Laravel and Vue applications, whereby if it is this e-commerce, you can go ahead and extend more on it. You can play with this code, come up with a real-time e-commerce application. So I'm just forming a foundation for you so that you can now pick it up from here and be able to advance yourself. So if you have any question, please comment them in the comment description. Like this video, share it, please. Don't just watch and go. And I'll meet you in the next video.